Some breaking news in the sports media world. It's happened. Charania set to replace Adrian Wojnarowski at ESPN. I'm Trevor Lane. This is the Basketball Bulletin. Make sure you hit that subscribe button as we push for 5,000 subscribers before the season starts. All right, Charania announcing, breaking the news himself, appropriately enough. Shams says on his account on X, also posted it over on Threads, said, "I'm honored to join ESPN as the company's senior NBA insider. I can't wait to be part of an incredible group of colleagues at ESPN and serve the sports audience worldwide." Now, early on in the morning, we got a report that Shams had begun early contract negotiations with ESPN. That report came out first thing this morning. Obviously, those contract negotiations either went very quickly or that was a bit of an outdated news source there, because Shams has already come to terms. You know, when I was looking at this situation, we talked about this when Woj retired. We surmised that it was not just chance that Shams Charania's contract with The Athletic was coming up at about the same time as Adrian Wojnarowski was retiring, that likely this was something that was already probably in the works, and it was surmised that Shams Charania would land with ESPN, that he would become their new top insider. Now, there were some reports out there that some other people could wind up getting the spot. Specifically, we saw Jeff Passan, who covers MLB for ESPN, Adam Schefter, who covers the NFL. There were reports that maybe Adam Schefter would do both, that he would cover the NBA and the NFL, and that was something that had been done a few times in the past. But I never really bought that. I figured that was always kind of a leverage thing for ESPN with Shams, because Shams knows as soon as Woj is gone, Shams is the guy, right? He is the top newsbreaker in the NBA, bar none, no question. So going into those negotiations with ESPN, obviously Shams can ask for whatever he wants. He can ask for a lot in those negotiations. So I always felt like the Adam Schefter thing, the Jeff Passan thing, was always more about ESPN trying to reclaim some leverage and say, well, yeah, we would like to hire you, but if you're asking for too much, we've got our guys in-house that we may transfer over, that we might bring over from another sport. We've got other options. You're not really our only option, Shams. Obviously, the negotiations went just fine, and Shams will join ESPN. Now, where things go from here. So I think a couple things. First of all, for Shams with ESPN, obviously, he is now their top newsbreaker. It wouldn't shock me to see Shams making appearances now on ESPN programming, kind of the way Adrian Wojnarowski did, though it's always been a little interesting because most of the value that people like Woj and Shams provide actually comes from their social media accounts. It comes from X. It comes from where they post things, because that's the nature of the business. That's how fast breaking news travels. Before Shams can get on an ESPN show and break news, in order to be first, he's already put it out there on social media. Now, Shams does have a habit, though, of sprinkling in things in his commentary when he does make appearances on videos and things like that. When he's on TV, he does sprinkle in some interesting news tidbits. So that's what I would expect to see. The big trades still broken on social media, on X. Shams is going to put them out there. Hey, this trade's happening. This guy's signing with this team, that sort of thing. But in terms of getting some intel from behind the scenes, because what Shams does is he acts as a go-between for all the teams. They're going to give him information. They're going to get information from him in exchange. So we're going to see some sprinkled in details from around the NBA whenever you see Shams on ESPN programming. And that's always an exciting thing. That's kind of the, behind the scenes. It's reading between the lines. It's that sort of stuff that can give us that insight and that context into what it is that a team is doing, why they're doing it, who some of their targets are, things like that. But in terms of this is a done deal, I'm expecting that to still happen on social media. Now, the other thing is with Adrian Wojnarowski gone, so there's a power vacuum, right, where Shams Charania slides into that power vacuum at ESPN. He is now the man. He's the guy. He's the top newsbreaker in the NBA. He's with ESPN. There you have it. That power vacuum is filled. But Shams leaving creates another power vacuum. So now the question becomes, who is the new Shams? And it could be multiple people. There's a number of people that could step up into this role. Certainly Brian Windhorst within ESPN can perhaps become a bigger presence on the news breaking stage. You've got guys like my pal Jake Fisher, who's over with The Athletic now, who jumped over to The Athletic. He's been known to break news. Chris Haynes, what ultimately happens with him? He could be a newsbreaker. Of course, Mark Stein does a fantastic job on his Substack, and there could be other people that we're not talking about currently that do move into that role. I don't think we're going to suddenly become a one newsbreaker industry. I think that what's going to happen is we're going to see some other people rise up in order to fill that void that has now been left by Shams Charania. Now, it could wind up being one person takes over the Shams role, and we wind up back to a Shams versus whoever this mystery person is, kind of like we had with Woj versus Shams. By the way, at some point, there needs to be a documentary. Like, maybe it needs to be 10 years from now or something like that, so that people feel completely comfortable with speaking freely and some time has passed and everything. But at some point, we need a Woj versus Shams battle, a la the Monday Night Wars, the documentaries that we saw on that in pro wrestling with WWE versus WCW. We need a Woj versus Shams docu-series, a 30 for 30, whatever it's going to be. We need that. That must happen because we need some details on how intense that rivalry was. But I do think that Shams is not going to run just completely unopposed. There's going to be other newsbreakers that are going to appear in the space that, again, it's probably not going to be somebody that's coming out of nowhere. I can tell you this is not going to be me. That's not what I do. I'm not going to be, having my phone tethered to me 24 hours a day and multiple phones and all that kind of stuff and breaking news. That's not really my thing, but there will be people that are going to appear. It's not going to be somebody out of the blue. It's not going to be a random X account with 50 followers is suddenly breaking a ton of NBA news. But this is going to become a thing where we're going to have other people that are joining this power vacuum that step up. And I don't know if I want to say oppose Shams, but they do become a factor in news breaking in the NBA. I don't think we're going to sit with just Shams and nobody else. So that is going to be a subplot to follow here as this story continues to break. But once again, Adrian Wojnarowski retires, goes to join St. Bonaventure. He is now acting as their general manager. We talked all about that the other day. Remember the ESPN also laid off Zach Lowe. They let him go. He was on a big contract. I do wonder if maybe part of that was to open up more room to give Shams more and bring him in. But Zach Lowe, ESPN loses him. They lose Adrian Wojnarowski. They've now replaced Woj with the biggest newsbreaker in the business, and that is Shams Charania. The question now becomes, who will fill the power vacuum left from Shams' secondary role to Woj? He was battling against Woj for so many years. It was such a fun subplot to watch on draft night, during trade deadline season, all of that. It was a lot of fun. So I do think we're going to see somebody else enter that power vacuum that Shams is now leaving with the Athletic and just in the industry in general. But there you have it, Shams Charania to ESPN. Let me know your thoughts. Was this the hire you were expecting? And where do you think things go from here? Who becomes the new Shams Charania in the sports media industry, particularly in NBA reporting? Let me know your thoughts in the comments section. Again, everybody, don't forget to subscribe right here to the Basketball Bulletin. Appreciate all of you for joining us here. Till next time, see ya and stay safe.